Imagine this. You are preparing some delicious pork ribs for your barbecue party and about to pour in your secret ingredient, a good drizzle of apple cider vinegar into the marinade, so that the meat gets so tender it literally falls off the bone. But have you ever wondered, how does this golden liquid actually get made? How does something that starts as a crisp, sweet apple turn so tangy, so sharp, so alive? Today we peel back the label and step inside the world of apple cider vinegar. From orchard to fermentation tank, from chemistry to craft. This is how it's made. Before the bottles, before the factory machines, before the fermentation tanks, apple cider vinegar begins its life here, in the orchard. This is where nature lays the foundation for everything that follows. The apples destined for vinegar need the right balance of sugar, acid, and juice content. That's why most producers use a blend of sweet and tart varieties. Growing the perfect apple is a year-round science. Orchard managers monitor soil pH, sunlight exposure, rainfall, and temperature. The trees are pruned in winter, irrigated in dry spells, and protected from pests and frost in spring. Some farms operate organically, avoiding synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. Others may follow integrated pest management, using a precise, minimal approach to crop care. In spring, thousands of tiny white and pink blossoms cover the trees. Bees and other pollinators dart from flower to flower, performing an invisible service that's critical to the harvest months later. Over the summer, the apples grow, slowly filling with juice and developing flavor. As harvest nears, workers measure Brix levels, a key indicator of sugar content. Once the apples reach optimal ripeness, usually in early fall, it's time to pick. Harvesting is both a race against time and a celebration. Apples are picked by hand, one by one, to avoid bruising. Within hours of harvest, they're loaded into bins and chilled or sent directly to the processing facility. Unlike table apples that must look perfect, vinegar apples can have slight blemishes or imperfections. What matters most is the juice inside. From here, the apples leave the peaceful quiet of the orchard and begin their transformation. What was once a crisp, juicy fruit is about to become one of the most ancient and versatile liquids in the culinary and health world. Next, we follow these apples as they arrive at the factory, where modern technology meets old-world fermentation tradition to create the vinegar you know and love. After the apples arrive from the orchard, they enter the first phase of industrial transformation. The apples are unloaded in massive quantities. From there, they travel along a network of conveyor belts, heading toward the wash line. Before anything else, cleanliness is paramount. The apples are doused in high-pressure water sprays, rotated through mechanical brushes, and sometimes treated with food-safe sanitizing solutions. This step removes any dirt, debris, or residues left from the orchard. Once spotless, the apples move forward, whole, intact, but only briefly. They enter a powerful grinder, where rotating blades or hammer mills tear them apart at high speed. The result? A thick, juicy pulp known as apple mash. This mash includes not just juice, but also bits of skin, flesh, and seeds. It's the foundational mixture from which all the complex flavors of cider, and eventually vinegar, will be drawn. At this stage, speed matters. Oxidation can begin within minutes of grinding, so factories are designed to move the mash quickly to the next phase. From nature's fruit to a factory fresh pulp, the apple is now ready for pressing. The pulpy mash, still warm from grinding, is now ready for its next transformation, the release of its precious juice. The apple mash is funneled into massive commercial presses, machines that exert tons of pressure per square inch. In some factories, it's layered between cloths or synthetic mats, stacked like a giant sandwich, and then slowly compressed. In others, automated belt presses or screw systems continuously squeeze the mash as it travels through. As the pressure mounts, golden juice pours out. It's thick, cloudy, and full of microscopic particles, skin cells, fruit fibers, and natural yeast that drift in the air. This raw liquid is known as apple must, and it's the lifeblood of the vinegar to come. But it's not just about squeezing, it's about efficiency. Modern systems are designed to extract the maximum amount of juice from every pound of fruit, often reclaiming over 80% of the liquid content. The leftover dry pulp, called pomace, doesn't go to waste. It's collected separately and may be used for animal feed, compost, or even processed further into pectin and fiber supplements. At this point, the juice is cloudy and unfiltered, rich with natural sugars. It flows into large holding tanks where it waits, just briefly, before the next critical step. Soon, this raw, unassuming juice will enter fermentation tanks and begin a transformation powered by nature's tiniest workers. Now the real transformation begins. The freshly pressed apple juice, rich with sugars, alive with aroma, is transferred into large stainless steel tanks. Some factories use massive vats that hold thousands of gallons. Others may use smaller fermenters for greater control over batches. Either way, this stage marks the beginning of a remarkable natural process, fermentation. To guide it, yeast is introduced. Often, these are carefully selected strains of Saccharomyces cerevisiae, prized for their consistency and ability to handle the sugar concentration in apple juice. The yeast immediately gets to work. It begins to consume the natural sugars, glucose and fructose, converting them into ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. As the days pass, the tanks come alive. The mixture bubbles, froths, and emits heat as yeast populations explode. The liquid starts to change in flavor, aroma, and chemical structure. Temperature control is key during this stage. The tanks are often kept between 60 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit to allow for a steady fermentation. Too hot and the yeast might die off or produce off flavors. Too cold and fermentation slows dramatically. This primary fermentation usually lasts anywhere from 5 to 14 days, depending on the method and desired outcome. Throughout, the cider is regularly tested. Sugar levels, alcohol content, and pH are monitored closely. When fermentation slows and the bubbling subsides, the sugar is gone. The yeast has done its job. What was once sweet, raw juice is now dry, crisp cider with an alcohol content of around 5 to 7%. But we're only halfway there. To become vinegar, this young cider must now undergo a second, slower transformation. One not driven by yeast, but by bacteria. And that's where the real magic begins. At this stage, we have cider, fragrant, crisp, and lightly alcoholic. But the journey to vinegar is only halfway complete. Now the process shifts from yeast to bacteria, specifically a unique group of microorganisms known as acetic acid bacteria, most commonly Acetobacter aceti. These microscopic workers are about to turn alcohol into something extraordinary. The cider is transferred into new fermentation tanks, often equipped with systems to gently aerate the liquid. Oxygen is key here. While yeast thrives in anaerobic, oxygen-free conditions, acetic acid bacteria require air to work their magic. With oxygen steadily introduced, the bacteria begin feeding on the alcohol in the cider. Their mission: convert ethanol into acetic acid, the defining component of vinegar. This process is known as acetic acid fermentation, and it's much slower than the first. It can take several weeks to several months, depending on the method used. In traditional methods like the Orléans process, the cider is exposed to air in wooden barrels and slowly ferments over many months. These methods produce richly complex vinegars, but they're time-consuming and harder to scale. In modern industrial vinegar factories, the process is sped up using what's called the submerged fermentation method. In these closed stainless steel acetators, oxygen is pumped directly into the liquid, and the bacteria are suspended throughout, working around the clock. This method dramatically reduces fermentation time to as little as 24 to 48 hours. But whether fast or slow, the result is the same. Cider transformed into a sharp, acidic liquid that's beginning to take on the familiar aroma of vinegar. In some batches, especially raw or unfiltered varieties, you'll find something floating inside: the mother of vinegar. This gelatinous mass is a living colony of cellulose and acetic acid bacteria. Though it looks unusual, it's a sign of authenticity and life, a visible reminder that vinegar is a living product, born through fermentation. In fact, many factories use a starter culture derived from the mother to jumpstart new fermentation batches, much like using a sourdough starter in bread making. As fermentation progresses, acidity rises and alcohol disappears. Once the acidity level reaches around 5 to 6%, the vinegar is considered complete, sharp, stable, and shelf-ready. But it's not bottled just yet. There's still more to do. The fermentation is complete, the alcohol is gone, and the cider has fully transformed into vinegar. Sharp, pungent, alive with acidity. But this raw vinegar, though chemically complete, isn't quite ready for the bottle. It needs time. It needs refinement. It needs patience. In many facilities, the vinegar enters a stage called maturation. This isn't strictly necessary for function, but it is essential for flavor. Just like wine or whiskey, vinegar benefits from time. During maturation, it rests in large stainless steel tanks, or in more traditional settings, in wooden barrels, usually oak. Over weeks or even months, the sharpness softens. Harsh notes mellow. Subtle fruity and woody undertones develop. Aromas deepen. The vinegar becomes rounder, smoother, more balanced. Some producers blend batches at this stage to ensure consistency. Others may allow small oxygen exchanges to fine-tune acidity and flavor. Once matured, the vinegar is ready to be clarified. Raw vinegar straight from fermentation is cloudy, filled with suspended solids like bacterial remnants, pectin, fruit fibers, and sediment. For many consumers, clarity is part of the expectation, especially for cooking or shelf display. To achieve this, the vinegar is passed through a series of filters. These range from coarse screens that remove larger particles to ultra-fine filtration systems that polish the liquid to crystal clarity. In commercial-grade vinegars, pasteurization is sometimes used, gently heating the vinegar to kill any remaining bacteria and prevent further fermentation. But in raw, organic, or unfiltered versions, this step is skipped to preserve the living cultures and the mother. Both are technically apple cider vinegar, but their character and uses can differ greatly. One is clean and controlled, the other is wild, rustic, and full of microbiological life. After weeks of transformation, clarification, and rest, the vinegar is now ready for its final journey. It has traveled from orchard to factory, and now it heads to the bottling line. The vinegar has matured, clarified, refined, and balanced. Now it needs a vessel to reach kitchens and pantries worldwide. In this final stage, stainless steel tanks feed the finished vinegar into automated machines. Bottles, glass, or food-grade plastic are sanitized, filled, and sealed. Shelf-stable vinegar gets a tamper-proof cap. Raw, living vinegar may use breathable seals to allow safe gas exchange. From here, it's off to markets, restaurants, and homes. Born from apples and transformed through fermentation, the vinegar's factory journey ends here, but its story continues. In dressings, tonics, and cleaning solutions, it finds new purpose. One bottle, 100 uses, 1,000 stories. From orchard to bottle, this humble liquid is shaped by tradition, preserved by science, and shared by millions. So next time you splash, sip, or scrub, remember, even the simplest things can have extraordinary stories. Thanks for joining us on this exciting food journey. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the foods that shape our world. And just in case you have missed some of the older episodes, we have you covered. We have attached a special selection of past Factory View episodes to this video. So stay with us and enjoy more fascinating food discoveries. See you in the next episode.